The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, Season 4. I was doing weekly reviews for this show, but there was so much coming out in this month, I had to take a step back, and for some reason, I just had to decide that The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel was just gonna be pushed aside. It sucks. Because I've literally done an entire episode on my podcast talking about The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. I have talked about this show off air so much. I adore The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. It is probably one of my favorite programs to ever be created. I would put it in my top 5 television shows ever. Those first 3 seasons are breathtaking. They're brilliantly paced, they're well acted, well executed in every single part of filmmaking. I adore them. And COVID happened, season 4 was delayed, and I feel the delay. I said this when I did my weekly reviews too, and I'm going to say it again here. This really feels like it should have came out a year ago, which sucks because the pacing in this season wasn't what it used to be in this show. And I think you really felt that in the beginning of the season. I think the first 3 episodes are very interesting. There's one episode that's dedicated to one of the actors that passed away, which I get. The actor that plays Jackie passed away. We're going to do the episode for him where Alex Borstein gives her best performance of her career. That was great. And then the beginning half of the season, it's very much just like reestablishing the status quo, which I don't like. I don't think 4 seasons into this type of story, we need to reestablish the status quo. Miriam does not have to move back in with her parents. We don't have to restart everything where she's like an up-and-coming comic. We don't need that. And that's kind of what we got here, and that really hindered the beginning of the show. And then as it went on, it did find its footing a little bit more. I will say, though, I don't think this is my favorite season. There just wasn't that hook, In the first season, it's this woman coming up in an industry dominated by men. In the second season, we go to the Catskills. It's like her father discovering her talents and meeting all these interesting men who her mother wanted to set her up with. In the third season, we have the Shy Baldwin stuff where she's just, she's getting there now. She's finally finding her footing. Season 4, she is kind of being a little more promiscuous in terms of what she does. And I would hearken this story to kind of just her establishing dominance in the industry. She's not actively pursuing these jobs. Midge is only taking certain roles, and that's I think the problem with it. It's she wants to be this certain type of woman where she can say what she wants and do what she wants, but at every turn she's taking the wrong opportunities and doing the wrong thing to really advance her career. And maybe that's just I guess important for this character to find those feelings, but as an audience member you're like, Midge, we're with you. But it doesn't seem like you are actively trying to do this right. If the premise of this story is your comedy career, you are not doing the right steps to get there. She does some great bits. She has some great sets in here that work really well. One of the things I always find very fascinating about writing, an actual set to record is how is it going to work? Is it going to sound like an actual comic would write these jokes and then have the actor perform them? It feels very naturalistic in everything she does. There's some moments where I'm like, oh yeah, this is funny for the 60s. There's some moments where I'm like, this is genuinely funny. This works really well. But overall, aside from the actual stand-up bits that she does in the show, this season is not as funny. There's one very funny moment on a Ferris wheel at the beginning of the show. There's a couple moments with Susie at the funeral. And then I think gradually as the story progresses, it stops being a comedy and starts being more of just a dramedy. And the comedy aspect doesn't take as big as an opportunity as some of the other choices it does, which is fine. 4 seasons into the show, if we can't enjoy these characters for who they are and what they do, we don't deserve to be in their lives. This is just, here they are. It's not funny anymore. It's serious stuff, but they're in a comedic world. That's great too. And that works for the most part. But if you're going to this expecting those big laughs you've gotten in previous seasons, I don't think those are there. I don't think that's a problem. I don't think that's a bad thing at all. It's just a noticeable absence from the show. Because everybody is kind of progressing in their jobs. Everybody is kind of building themselves up in these new opportunities, except for Midge. Joel's club is doing really well. Abe's got a new role as the critic. That scene when he's at the church and he's like, this play was bad. You guys are just so in love with this kid because we know him. The play was bad. That's a great scene too. Again, Tony Schaub does a great job with all that stuff. That was a funny scene. Even Rose's like matchmaking career leads to a very interesting angle where kind of like the matchmaking gangsters of New York are after her. That's kind of funny. That's very interesting. And Susie actually gets an office this time around. Like, she's actually in a place doing stuff. She's getting more clients. They're fascinating too. I do kind of like that it's not just comedians she's talking to. She's got a magician in there. That's kind of fun. That scene was freaking amazing. I do want to say that. Like, when we see like Alfie's actual like performance going on and he hypnotizes Rose, and Rose does exactly Miriam's set from a couple episodes earlier, like, my God. That is brilliant. Like, that is such a strong outing and a performance for everybody involved. It was such a good thing to see. Amazing. It seems like everybody's building themselves up except for Midge in a way. And I guess that's kind of just like a good thing? Or like we're seeing her struggle? Because it does lead to an amazing finale. I cannot wait to talk about it. Just interesting choices being made. Milo Ventimiglia was teased to be in this. Not in it a lot. I actually like the way they used him because it's kind of setting up like, oh, he's going to be the perfect, charming boy. He's not. That's kind of funny. That's a great use to have like a big name in there just for a silly little scene. I did enjoy that. The tensions between May and Joel and like revealing their relationship to their family, I did like that and it worked really well. Great use of that character. One of the things I am going to notice, and I want to talk about this a little bit because I think it's very impressive. I think the two people, Midge and Joel, like the people that they fall for that's not each other are people that are exactly like their previous partner. May has a lot of similarities to Miriam in her, just like in terms of like the jokes she makes, the way she presents herself. It's just a little more in the academic setting than the comedic setting. And Miriam likes Lenny Bruce, and Lenny has a lot of the same qualities of like, you know, just like that. I'm trying to find like the right word for it. Self-loathing, deprecating humor that Joel kind of carries around with him, where it's like the world's going to happen around me. I'm just going to be strong around it. I think that's a really cool angle that not everyone's going to pick up on, and I did really enjoy that. I want to say this too, because I think it's very important, because Lenny Bruce, I think, is one of the most important figures in comedy. He really just pioneered this certain type of just do it. Just do it. And it leads to one of the greatest interpretations of Lenny Bruce out there. Like, I'm not going to say it. I'm probably going to save it for a separate video, actually. I think the final, let's say, 10 minutes of the finale of this season was so awesome. It was just letting Lenny Bruce be Lenny Bruce and tell you how hard this job is and how much he doesn't like what he does with it sometimes. Like, it was just brilliant. It was so smart, so creative. I adored it. This season worked pretty well. Aside from there being less jokes and weird pacing at the beginning, everything was still operating on all high notes. The music was great. The cinematography was great. The costume work was great. There's a lot of strip shows in this one, which I get it because Midge is kind of working on a strip show for a bit. So you do see like, hey, you're actually putting some creativity into the way you're doing like the provocative nature of strip teases. That's kind of cool. That's a fun angle to play with. And we're getting pretty close to the Kennedy stuff. So JFK is running for office. Let's have some jokes about that. That was funny too. I did enjoy that. Like, it was like, okay, we're in the 60s now. Things are going to take a drastic turn. I like it. I think it's working pretty well. Everything about the show hit the right notes. But the problem with hitting all the right notes is sometimes those notes can get stale when you've seen it repeated 4 seasons in a row. And that, I think, is the detriment to this being talked about in the popular zeitgeist. 4 seasons in, we're not really getting any new audience for this show, I don't think. It's strong, it's cool, it's creative, but nobody is talking about it. And that, I think, is the biggest problem I have with this season. Where's the push? Where's the push that The Boys has been getting? Where's the push that 100 other shows have been getting? Making it weekly? That's a smart choice. Every 2 episodes a week? That's cool. You are pretty much saying, this is the month of Maisel. The problem with that is, you're competing against a lot of other stuff, and it just kind of pushes you to the sidelines. So, I do think this season is strong. I think Rachel Brosnahan and Alex Borstein give some of the best performances of their life, and it's very impressive to see. I will say, though, if you forgot this came out, I wouldn't be surprised, just because it's doing everything right, but sometimes doing everything right just doesn't make it special anymore. And that might be the problem with this season of The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. What makes it special isn't making it worth watching sometimes. It's sad, but that's just where we are. That's just how things go now. It's not great, but I still love this show. I'm still impressed by it, and I cannot wait to see what the final season is going to bring us. I think it's going to be pretty cool, because this season, if it's any indication, things are about to get a lot more intense. So, The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, season number 4, I am going to give an 8 out of 10. Now, thank you guys for watching this review. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. As always, you can check me out on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. And as always, I will catch you in the next one. Have fun, stay safe, good luck, tits up.